After my wife died, I relocated to be nearer to my grandchildren. On my first night, my son-in-law changed the bathroom locks, stating, "We need boundaries." He made me request permission to eat. My daughter continued stirring the soup, saying, "He's right, Dad. You're not a guest. You're a burden." When they went on vacation, they left me without food and took the car keys. What I did next surprised even me. My wife passed away last year due to cancer. It began in her breast and spread quickly. She was gone in 8 months. I was by her side through the treatments, the hospice care, and the silence at the end. After it was over, I sat in the house, staring at her old slippers by the bed, unable to sleep or eat. At 68, I felt like I was already dead too. After the funeral, things went silent. Friends stopped reaching out. The church provided meals for a week, and then that ceased as well. My daughter Dana checked in occasionally, while her husband Rick did not, but Dana eventually suggested I move in with them in Louisville to be closer to my grandkids, claiming it would keep me busy. I sold my house, packed up what little I had, and moved. I didn't expect a warm welcome, but I also didn't anticipate what I received. On arrival, Rick remained on the porch while I carried in my suitcase. Dana gave me a quick hug and instructed the kids to greet Grandpa, who offered polite hugs before rushing off to their screens. The house was spacious, clean, and quiet. Rick guided me to the basement where I would stay. Although the basement was finished, it was chilly, with a concrete floor, thin rug, futon, and mini Frigidaire stove, sink or windows. Rick handed me a key for the basement bathroom, explaining, "This is for keeping things organized." I didn't want to cause a scene on my first day, so I nodded. The next morning, I woke up sore from the futon and went upstairs for coffee. Dana was at the stove, while Rick sat at the table on his laptop. When I went to the pantry, Rick looked up and asked, "Going somewhere?" I thought he was joking and laughed, but he didn't. "We just prefer you ask first," he said. "We're teaching the kids about structure. Can't have people grabbing food whenever they want." I realized I was just people now. Dana didn't even look up from her soup as she confirmed, "He's right. Dad, you're not a guest. You're a burden." The flatness of her voice felt scripted. My chest tightened. I nodded and retreated downstairs. The word burden echoed in my mind all day. From that point forward, I remained quiet, stayed in the basement, and ordered food when I could afford it. They didn't invite me to dinner. They would text me to pick the kids up from school or help with laundry, and I always obliged. Even when Rick rolled his eyes at my towel-folding skills or pretended I didn't exist when guests were over. One night, Rick asked me to move my shoes because the kids were tripping over them, even though they were neatly arranged by the door. Another night, Dana asked me to minimize the noise at night. Despite my quiet bathroom trips and socks, the last straw came when they announced a 5-day family vacation to Myrtle Beach. I asked if I could join and pay my own way, but Dana said it wasn't the right time, and Rick insisted we need nuclear family bonding. I offered to watch the house, but Rick said, "You'll be here anyway." On that Saturday, as they packed the car, Rick took the car keys off the hook, saying, "Just a safety precaution. Don't want you getting lost." I asked if I could at least go to the store, and Rick replied, "We stocked your fridge." They hadn't. After they left, I opened the mini fridge to find only a bottle of mustard and an old water bottle. The upstairs pantry was locked, literally padlocked. In the trash, I discovered 2 untouched loaves of bread and a rotisserie chicken, discarded intentionally as a message. Sitting alone at their kitchen table, I felt more than sadness. I was furious. My own daughter, after everything I'd done. For her rocking her through asthma attacks, funding her college and wedding, I didn't plan what I did next. It just happened. I went into Rick's office, where he often bragged about his home vault to neighbors, trying to impress them. I knew. The code 2007, their wedding year in 11, his old college jersey number. I opened it to find some cash, 2 watches, and a loaded Glock in a case. I took $300 in 20s and left a note. "You took the keys and locked up the food. I'm not your hostage, not your child. I'm not your burden." Called a cab, paying. in cash and went to a cheap extended stay hotel that smelled like cigarettes. Finally, I could breathe. That night, I had a burger, fries, and a beer, the first hot meal in days. I slept soundly. The next morning, I opened my laptop and contacted my lawyer. Before my wife passed, she had advised me to save money for emergencies. As she didn't trust Rick, I listened to her. We had $140,000 in life insurance. She instructed me to set it aside for myself. I used part of it to buy a duplex in a working-class area of Louisville, one side for me, and the other for someone who needed it more than my daughter ever did. I met Lisa at the food pantry. She was a single mom of 2, trying to escape an abusive ex. I offered her the other half of the duplex for $1 a month until she regained her footing. She cried, saying no one had ever been kind to her. Meanwhile, Rick left a voicemail filled with fake outrage, demanding I return to explain myself or he'd call the cops. I texted back, "Go ahead and tell them why you took my keys and locked up food like I was an animal." I haven't heard from him since. I blocked both their numbers. I still miss my grandkids. That's the only part that hurts, but I've come to terms with it. Rick and Dana tried to belittle me, make me feel worthless. It turned out I just needed to leave to remember who I was. 3 weeks after moving into the duplex, I began to breathe like a real person again. No locks on doors, no one monitoring my every move. I'd wake up early, make my coffee, sit on the porch, and listen to the birds. Peace like that is invaluable until someone takes it away. Lisa and her 2 boys moved in next door the following week, arriving with nothing but a small suitcase, a broken laptop, and a box of canned food from a church pantry. The boys were quiet, and Lisa looked tired, as if she hadn't slept securely in years. I gave her my wife's old couch and bought a few items from Craigslist: a table, bunk beds, and a microwave. She cried again, saying it felt like God had sent me. I told her the truth. I'm just an old man with nobody left. Oh, you gave me someone to care for again? Things were good and simple until I spotted Dana's car parked down the street one Tuesday morning. After returning from the grocery store, I noticed her gray SUV, tinted windows, parked about 5 houses down. I stood there, groceries in hand, staring at it until it drove off. 2 days later, I received a letter in the mailbox with no return address. Inside was a photo of me and Lisa's boys on the porch, smiling while I helped them build a birdhouse. "With you replaced your grandkids," with trash written in black Sharpie across the image. There was no signature, but I didn't need one. That night, someone slashed my tires. It wasn't random. A neighbor saw a man in a hoodie sneaking around my car around midnight, trying to stay low but limping. Rick had knee surgery last fall. I didn't call the police. I didn't want more trouble. But something changed in me after that. I was done pretending this was over. I went to a lawyer, not the old one who handled my will. This one was sharper and aggressive, and I disclosed everything: how I'd been mistreated, controlled, and abandoned. I had photos, texts, and Rick's voicemail. I asked, "Can I do anything to ensure they never come near me or my money again?" He smiled and said, "Oh yeah." We redrafted the will, locked it with a third-party trustee, and insured Dana and Rick. We're legally excluded from every document. Power of attorney was revoked, and health proxy changed. Even helped me set up a trust in Lisa's name for her kids. Just when I thought it was all secured, Rick appeared at the duplex one day while I was watering the front lawn. He approached me with arms wide and a fake smile, saying, "Hey, we need to talk, old man." I didn't respond. He continued, "I know you've been making moves. Trust funds, lawyers. I get it. You're upset, but we're family." He stepped closer, and I recognized that fake charm he used when hiding something. Then he said something that chilled me. "You really want to leave everything to some stray woman with bastard kids? Think that's what your wife would have wanted?" I remained still, unblinking, and replied, "You need to leave right now." "Didn't back down," he smirked. "I just came to say we're contesting everything: the will, the house, all of it. You're not in your right mind. You have a history of depression, right? We'll make the case." I didn't react. I just stepped inside and locked the door. 5 minutes later, I called my new lawyer and relayed what had occurred. He advised me to record any threats and suggested installing cameras and maintaining a paper trail. That night, I instructed Lisa and the boys to stay inside after dark. Rick had crossed the line, and he was about to learn I wouldn't play nice anymore. After Rick's visit, I realized I couldn't let my guard down again. I installed security cameras that evening at the front door, back alley, side fence, and one facing the street. My lawyer assisted in registering everything to ensure any footage would hold up in court. He also suggested I keep a log of everything: dates, times, details. 3 days later, Dana showed up unexpectedly. Instead, she barged in through the side gate and shouted from my porch, "Dad, come out. I need to talk to you." Lisa peeked out and called me immediately. I stepped outside and locked eyes with my daughter. She appeared exhausted, her hair messy, no makeup, and eyes red from crying. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she shoved a folder into my hands, stating, "This is a petition for guardianship. You're clearly being manipulated. You've cut off your family, moved money to strangers, and we won't allow you to destroy everything Mom left for us." I was speechless as I opened the folder and realized it was legitimate. She had hired a lawyer to claim I was mentally unstable and that Lisa was preying on a grieving old man. I held the folder, looked her in the eye, and asked, "Do you truly believe I'm not right in the head? Or is this just about the money?" Dana didn't respond. She turned and stormed off, slamming the door of her SUV as she left. Ow, my heart raced. She wanted to control me, to treat me like a tool she could use when convenient. I returned inside and showed Lisa the paperwork. Her hands trembled. "They'll come after you too," I warned. "They already called you a predator. I don't care what they call me," she replied. "I just don't want to see you get hurt." The next day, my lawyer filed a motion to dismiss the guardianship attempt and sought a restraining order against Rick, citing the car vandalism and threats. He believed we had a strong case but warned it would get ugly before improving. He was right. 2 weeks later, I was visited by CPS. Someone reported Lisa for child neglect and cohabitating with a dangerous elderly man with mental instability. They questioned her boys, inspected her pantry, and asked if I had ever been alone with them. Lisa cried after they left, whispering, "I knew they'd use your love against you." The case was closed 2 days later, with no cause for concern found. But the damage was done. Lisa's boys were scared, and she couldn't sleep. So we began investigating. Turned out Rick's consulting business, which he operated from a shared office space, was under investigation for fraud. My lawyer discovered 3 civil complaints. One from a client who alleged Rick had promised a non-existent government contract, and another from a woman claiming he'd billed her twice for the same service. Upon pulling financial records, it became evident Rick had heavily borrowed against his and Dana's home. It's likely because they were financially underwater and suddenly interested in my money. Now I had proof they were lying, manipulating, and desperate. But then it became personal again. I awoke one morning to find a dead bird on my front step, neck broken and feathers everywhere. The camera captured someone in a hoodie limping. By just after 3 a.m. I sent the footage to the police, and this time they took it seriously. Rick received a visit, and suddenly I had leverage, but I wasn't ready to use it just yet. I was waiting for the right moment to make them feel everything they had put me through. A few days after discovering the dead bird, Rick and Dana went silent. No letters, no visits. My lawyer informed me that the restraining order against Rick was being processed, and that CPS had cleared Lisa. It looked like they were backing off, perhaps frightened, but I knew better. They weren't finished, merely switching tactics. Then, the big blow came. I received a letter from the court. Dana was filing for full financial conservatorship, claiming I was mentally unfit to manage my own money. She presented an old email I had sent her after my wife's death, expressing my grief, stating, "I don't know why I'm still here. Some days I just want to sleep and not wake up." She took that and ran with it, telling the court I was suicidal and that Lisa was manipulating me. I had 30 days to respond before a court-appointed investigator would assess my mental state. It was the dirtiest move they could have made. Lisa wept as she read the papers, afraid she would be the reason my family tried to destroy me. I reassured her, "You didn't destroy anything." They did. But here's the crucial part I haven't shared yet. I had been preparing my own strategy for months. The moment Rick threatened my will, I began documenting everything, every message, every visit, the CPS incident, the guardianship filing, and even the dead bird. I compiled a comprehensive report with videos, emails, texts, camera footage, and screenshots of their false claims. I also hired a private investigator, which cost me $6,000 but was worth every penny. The investigator uncovered that Rick had opened a credit card in my name, using my social security number to rack up nearly $7,800 on electronics, flights, and meals. He even financed part of the Myrtle Beach trip using it. It took time to discover because the bills were sent to a P.O. box he rented. Fraud. That was the final straw. I called the bank, froze the account, and filed a police report. My lawyers submitted copies to the court handling the conservatorship case. That same week, Dana's lawyer dropped her case due to too much exposure and too many lies. But I wasn't finished. I filed a civil suit against Rick for financial fraud and emotional abuse. My lawyer presented all the dirt we had on him, including the business scams, the CPS stunt, the threats, the credit card fraud, and the dead bird incident. I also included statements from Lisa, the kids, neighbors, and the private investigator. Dana attempted to distance herself, calling me in tears. "Dad, I didn't know Rick was doing that. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just scared you were throwing everything away." I asked her one question. "Why didn't you stop him when he locked the food?" She fell silent, and I added, "You let your husband treat your father like a dog? You stirred soup while he made me ask to eat?" She sobbed, and I hung up. A few months later, the court ruled in my favor. Rick was ordered to pay damages, and a warrant was issued for the credit card fraud. His consulting business collapsed. He tried to start anew, but word got around. That's the thing about scammers. Once their facade slips, no one forgets. 6 months later, Dana filed for divorce, and I didn't respond to her letter. I left Louisville soon after, transferring the duplex to Lisa, fully deeding it in her name. She was so overwhelmed she could barely stand. I hugged her boys goodbye and told them to always protect their mom. Then I packed my belongings and left Kentucky for good. I settled in a small town in Missouri, finding a cozy house on a quiet street with a porch swing and a garden in the back. I joined the local VFW, made friends at the diner, and even started walking dogs for the shelter on weekends sometimes. I still miss Dana, the version of her that used to sit with me on the porch at age 10, asking if birds ever tire of flying. But that little girl is gone, and I finally grasped something profound. Blood doesn't define family. Respect does. When you allow someone to treat you as a burden for too long, you start to believe it until the day you don't, and that's when everything changes. They tried to break me, but I rebuilt myself with better people, and I will never be a burden to anyone again. Subscribe for more stories of resilience and strength.